Welcome to part 4. In this part, we are going to be looking at the ear. You are going to be able to identify anatomical structures of the ear, describe the path of sound through the ear, and identify the function of the different things in the ear. The ear is divided into 3 regions. This right here is the tympanic membrane. It's inside the temporal bone, so this is the temporal bone. So if we draw an imaginary line right there, this is the outer ear, or external. There's a hollow cavity inside the temporal bone, formed by the screen right here. That is the middle ear. And it's a hollow cavity. It actually has a passageway that goes to the pharynx. So this is the middle ear. Deep inside the temporal bone, there is this snail. See the snail shell? That's called the cochlea. That has the organs of hearing in it. You also have a vestibule and semicircular canals, which have organs for balance. What you guys think of the ear is this structure right here. It's called an auricle, not oracle, an auricle. And its job is to filter sound. So sound comes, the latest Britney Spears or Taylor Swift song is coming and coming and coming, and it bounces, and it gets filtered into the external acoustic canal. The job of the auricle is to filter sound into the acoustic or auditory canal. So here's sound wave. Oh no, it's Bruno Mars. There's the sound wave, and it goes right into this canal. It's not a duct. It's not a tube. It's a canal. The external acoustic canal travels from the auricle to this structure right here called the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane is the screen structure right here, and it vibrates when sound waves hits it. Whether it's the latest Kesha song or the latest Halsey song, it is going to vibrate. You guys notice the eardrum in this class is the tympanic membrane. So external ear is the auricle. It filters into the external acoustic canal, and then the sound waves hit the tympanic membrane. The middle ear is this air-filled cavity inside the temporal bone between the tympanic membrane, right here, and the inner ear. So remember, the external acoustic canal, or auditory canal, is going here, and the sound waves are coming through, and they are hitting the tympanic membrane at a humongous rate, and it vibrates. And it's going to move these 3 bones. Remember from levers, a second-class lever is very rare in the body? Well, these are actually all second-class levers, and their job is to amplify the sound. So we are hearing Cito for the 50th time, the Justin Bieber version. That is going to hit the tympanic membrane and cause these bones to vibrate. So we have 3 little bones called ossicles. We have the malleus right here, and that's attached to the tympanic membrane. We have the incus right here, and we have this one that looks like a horse stirrup. Well, we can't use horse stirrup, so we're going to use stapes, which is stirrup in Latin. And collectively, these are known as ossicles. They're the tiniest bones in your body. So here is the inner ear amplified or blown up. We have the malleus right here, and it's attached to the tympanic membrane. When the sound hits it, it vibrates. The malleus is attached to the incus right here. And because of the type 2 lever right in here, the incus moves. The incus is attached to the stapes right there. And because of that class 2 lever, that amplifies the sound too, and it goes into this snail-like structure. It really looks like a snail. See the snail shell? And that is where the organs of hearing is. So the job of the structures in the middle ear is to amplify sound for the organs of hearing. Now, there's one more structure for the middle ear. There's a tube right here. And for once, I actually like keeping with who it's named for. is called the eustachian or eustachian tube. Now, this is an air-filled cavity. There is a barrier, that's epithelial tissue, by the way, that prevents air from going in or out or anything else. That's the brain on this side and inside of a bone. So if you go up and down in pressure, that would cause trouble in here. So the eustachian tube connects the middle ear with the pharynx, and it allows you to depressurize. When I was your age, back when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, when you flew, they would give you something to drink and something to eat on takeoff. Yes, on takeoff. And the idea was you're chewing and drinking, you're moving your jaw. That's going to actually help open the eustachian tube and depressurize. Now, they don't care. I have sat in the section with babies that don't know you're supposed to move your jaw and take off in landing. They were not very happy. So again, the eustachian tube connects the middle ear with the pharynx to allow for depressurizing. So the inner ear is actually inside the temporal bone. So we have our external ear. Oh, look, this guy has hairy ears. And it filters sound into the external acoustic canal, and it hits the tympanic membrane. The middle ear has structures that sole role is to amplify the sound. So vibrations of the tympanic membrane cause the malleus, incus, and stapes to push on the vestibule right here. But that part of the vestibule is the very beginning of this snail-like structure called a cochlea. So the cochlea has organs of hearing. Cranial nerve number 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve. Well, it gets its name because of the cochlea and the vestibule. The vestibule has receptors for static equilibrium, which is telling you your head is staying straight and you're not falling asleep listening to this lecture. Then we have semicircular canals and semicircular ducts. I'm sure there's some semicircular tubes in there too. They actually have receptors for dynamic equilibrium. That's telling you your head is moving. Here are our 3 semicircular canals. 1, 2, and 3. So the cochlea, here's the cochlea, the vestibule, and the semicircular canals are actually lined with a membrane, and they have hair cells on that lining. And a hair cell is a really cool looking cell. It has these little tiny cilia that detect movement, whether a wave is moving this way or this way. And think you're at a lake, and a smooth, calm lake, and you throw a pebble in. What's going to happen is you get ripples, and the ripples are going to move this way, out, and it's going to cause the hair cells to change direction. So the stereocilia are going to move that way. Now what happens after it is there's a little pushback, and they move the other direction. So there are these little tiny hair cells that are the organs of balance and hearing. Now, inside the center of the cochlea, so this would be the center of the cochlea, and inside the semicircular ducts, which are in the semicircular canals, are you confused yet? And inside the vestibule is something called endolymph. And this is our smooth, calm lake that we're throwing a rock into. When it moves, it's going to move the hair cells one direction. This would be the on direction, or the other direction, which is the off direction. So what I want you to come away with is hair cells are the organ or the receptor for hearing and balance, and they're found inside these tubes, and endolymph moves them one way or another to activate or actually deactivate them. All 3 of these structures, the semicircular canals, the vestibule, and the cochlea, have ducts inside them. I really want to talk to the person who decided this naming system. So the semicircular canals have the semicircular ducts in them, and the endolymph moves as you move your head, shaking, "No more! This is confusing!" Don't worry, it is confusing. I understand you. The cochlea has the cochlear duct that has endolymph moving through it, and you actually have a labyrinth inside the vestibule with it having fluid moving through too. Most about the cochlea. The cochlea is the snail-like structure that I've actually, or somebody actually, pulled out like this. And it actually has 3 sacs in it. We have this sac right here, we have this sac right here, and we have another one moving down the center. So, when sound vibrates, the wave is going to come through here in the scala vestibuli, and it's going to hit at a certain place. So see, the middle tube is getting hit, and that's where the hair cells are and the endolymph. This is the cochlea stretched out. So here's the little tip of the snail tail. That's called the apex. That's an X. We have the stapes pushing on something called the oval window. And there's a big long tube here. Now, inside the tube is actually the cochlear duct that has the hair cells. Cochlear duct is actually in between this big long tube. It's actually a continuous tube, and it has hair cells. Now, the hair cells are on this membrane called the basilar membrane. Now, this membrane up here, the vestibular membrane. So we have this tube formed by the inner ear structures, and it's a big continuous ear, and the organ of Corte, the cochlear duct, is inside with hair cells. It is formed, the cochlear duct is formed by the vestibular membrane and the basilar membrane. Now, they need to name the 2 halves of the tube, so they're both called scala. Because this one is formed by the vestibular membrane, it's called the scala, or scala vestibuli. This one is called the scala tympani. Don't ask me why. So sound waves, the newest Ariana Grande song, is going to vibrate the ossicles. The stapes is going to push here. And this causes ripples that go through here. Now, since Ariana has a very high-pitched voice, the waves are going to hit closer to the apex. If it was a Barry Manilow song, the waves would probably hit here. This causes a disruption in the endolymph, which will push the hair cells. We have 3 tubes. We have our scala vestibuli, that is formed from the vestibular membrane. We have our scala tympani, which is formed from our basilar membrane. And then we have the cochlear duct, basically stuck in between the basilar and vestibular membrane, and it has hair cells. So this is the cross-section, this is the scala vestibuli, this is the scala tympani, there's the cochlear duct with the hair cells. So, we're listening to Barry Manilow, very deep voice, and I messed up on this on the previous slide. Basically, he has a deep voice, so the sound waves are going to travel a long way in this perilymph. Sound waves are going to be amplified by the stapes on the oval window, and they travel all the way and hit right here. Then we have Celine Dion, very high-pitched voice. The sound waves are going to actually hit the vestibular membrane very early on. So here's an animation of what's going on. Eardrum vibrates, malleus, incus stapes vibrate, amplifies the song, and apparently we are listening to Ariana Grande again, because it's hitting very early on. I'm going to recover from this Ariana Grande by listening to more Barry Manilow, so those sound waves would travel further and hit up here closer to the apex. Now the hair cells down here are going to take the sound, what you think is music, and transmit the sound, or what you think is the combination, to your brain, where it interprets it as music or noise. Hair cells detect different frequencies based on where they're located. The ones closer to the oval and round window here are going to be the higher pitched sounds. The ones closer to the apex are the lower pitched sounds. So these get beat up a lot. So as you age, you don't hear high pitched sounds. I bet you guys, when you were in high school, you had cell phone ringers that your teachers couldn't hear. That was taking complete advantage of this. Now, stores like Neiman Marcus have something called the Mosquito that play a high-pitched sound to drive their younger customers out because they don't think they have money.